Let's talk about something that can be, well, incredibly frustrating. You put together a really solid plan to help with a problem behavior, and for a while, it actually works. But then, out of nowhere, the behavior is back. So why does that happen? That's what we're going to dig into. I mean, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? You see all this great progress, you might even celebrate a little, and then suddenly it feels like you're right back at square one. It's so easy to think the whole plan was a bust. But what if it wasn't? Let's try to solve this little mystery by following the story of a kid we'll call Leo. In the world of behavior analysis, there's a specific name for this. It's called relapse. And here's the important part. It doesn't mean failure. Not at all. It usually just means that the conditions have changed. It's basically a signal for us to put on our detective hats and figure out what's really going on under the surface. I absolutely love this analogy. I mean, think about it. When you weed a garden, it's not a one-and-done job, right? You have to keep an eye on things. A behavior plan is kind of the same way. Seeing an old weed pop back up doesn't mean all your hard work was for nothing. It just means it's time to look at the soil and see what's changed. So, when a behavior makes a comeback, our investigation usually starts with 4 usual suspects. These are the most common, well-known types of relapse, and honestly, just learning how to spot them is a huge first step in figuring out how to fix the problem. Okay, first up on our list is something called resurgence. This one is all about that new positive behavior you worked so hard to teach. If that new skill suddenly stops, paying off, if it's not getting the person what they want or need anymore, well, they might just go back to the old behavior that used to work for them. And this is exactly what we saw with Leo. He learned this fantastic new skill using his words. But think about it. If the adults around him get busy and they stop responding when he says, "Play with me," then that great new skill is now useless to him. So what does he do? He goes right back to what he knows gets a big, immediate reaction, screaming. Here's a really simple way to remember this one. Think of the new, good behavior as a job. If the paycheck stops coming in, well, the person's probably going to quit and go back to what they were doing before. Simple as that. All right, our second suspect is called renewal. This one is all about location, location, location. A behavior might be totally gone in one specific place, like a therapy clinic, but then it pops right back up the second that person walks into a different environment. And we see this with Leo too. He's doing awesome at the clinic where everyone is following the plan perfectly. But then he goes to school or to his grandma's house, and suddenly the rules are different, the expectations are different, the way people respond is different. That new setting renews the old behavior. The memory trick here is super straightforward. If you see an old behavior show up in a new place, your first thought should probably be, could this be renewal? Number 3 on our list is reinstatement. This happens when a behavior comes roaring back because of a very specific trigger. Maybe a person, an object, or a situation that was taken away is suddenly brought back into the picture. The trigger's back, and bam, so is the behavior. For Leo, this was all about one particular toy. The plan to reduce his tantrums worked like a charm, as long as that toy was put away. But the second it came back out, the tantrums were reinstated. It's a really direct cause and effect relationship. So here's another easy one to lock in. When you see an old trigger reappear and the problem behavior immediately follows, you should be thinking reinstatement. And our last suspect is spontaneous recovery. Now, this one can feel like it comes completely out of the blue. Time has passed, everything's been going great, and then, poof, the behavior just reappears for a little bit. The good news is it's usually not as intense and doesn't last as long as it used to. So for Leo, maybe after a solid week with 0 whining to get out of tasks, he might just try it again one afternoon. There's no obvious reason why. It's almost like the old behavior is just, checking in to see if it might still work. So whenever a behavior just kind of pops up after a long break and you can't find a clear reason, that's spontaneous recovery. It's like that old habit is just giving it one last shot. Okay, let's just do a super quick review. Resurgence happens when the new behavior stops paying off. Renewal is all about a change in setting. Reinstatement is when an old trigger comes back, and spontaneous recovery just happens after time has passed. So 4 different reasons, 4 different names. But what if they're all connected by something deeper? And that brings us to what might be the single most critical question of all. We've looked at the learner, we've looked at the environment, we've looked at the triggers, but have we looked in the mirror? Are we, the people actually carrying out the plan, doing it the way it was designed? This leads us to the master key that unlocks this whole mystery: procedural integrity.
It sounds like a technical term, but it's really a very simple idea. Are we doing the plan right every single time? Because a brilliant plan that's followed inconsistently is really no better than having a bad plan to begin with. And what's wild is how simple a plan can look on paper. I mean, look at this. Give an instruction, wait 3 seconds, prompt if you need to, reinforce the right response, and record the data. 5 steps. Seems easy enough, right? But in the chaos of the real world, it is surprisingly easy to skip a step here or there. So let's say a teacher or a therapist correctly does just 4 out of those 5 steps. The procedural integrity score would be 80%. Now, that sounds pretty good, right? It's like getting a B on a test. But that 20% gap, that single missed step, can be the exact reason a plan starts to fall apart and a behavior comes rushing back. Okay, so if we know that low procedural integrity is the secret villain here, how do we actually protect our plans from it? This is where we shift from being detectives to being guardians, where we actively take steps to make sure the plan stays strong and effective. This chart just connects all the dots so perfectly. See? A mistake in how the plan is done, like thinning out reinforcement way too fast, can directly cause resurgence. Not using the plan when you go to a new place? Well, that's a mistake that leads straight to renewal. Bringing back old triggers before the person is ready, that causes reinstatement. A lot of the time, how we implement the plan is the direct cause of the relapse. So what can we actually do? Well, we have to be really thoughtful. We need to thin out reinforcement slowly. Don't just make the paycheck disappear overnight. We have to keep the replacement behavior powerful and effective. We need to generalize the plan to new people in new places. And maybe most importantly, we need to actually measure procedural integrity. We can't just hope it's being done right. We need to check. All right, let's just zoom out for a second and look at the main takeaway from all of this, because it's a really powerful shift in how we think about these things. So here it is, the big idea. Relapse isn't some failure on the part of the person. It's a predictable, even normal part of the learning process. It's a signal. It's a big red flag telling us to look at the whole picture, the environment, the triggers, and most crucially, how consistently we are sticking to the plan. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Now that you have this new lens, the next time you see an old behavior come back, you won't just see a problem, you'll see a clue. And your first question won't be, what's wrong with them? It'll be, okay, what's going on with our plan and are we really following it?